All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'm calling the planning commission meeting to order. Everybody stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Okay, roll call. Harold Granville present.
Mary Gray present.
Mark Crouch present.
Fennell Comstock present.
And Randy will not be with us tonight. All right. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes from last meeting?
Yes.
We're all good? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Don't you need a motion?
I motion that the minutes be approved. All in favor, say aye. There you go. It's almost becoming a routine, Rob. You're getting too good at it. All right, so we have new business tonight. Before I actually get into the different workshops, Rob proposed a few procedural ways that we want to attack what we want to do. Can you explain your logic on that, Rob?
I don't recall the conversation.
It was in your email. Basically, you were talking about how we were working on food trucks, but we wanted to think about incorporating in also special events into that. Now, we have to think about that as to whether we want to do that or not. And I know that we've also added ingress and egress to it because that's also involved with food trucks. So both of these new issues are coming up when we've been researching the food trucks, and they kind of all go together.
Well,
But
so
then we get really big.
the last workshop you had on this topic, your consensus was that you wanted a code for temporary uses,
Right.
that would be mobile food units, special events, temporary sales,
Right.
all kinds of different things that are temporary in nature. And you said you wanted that to look
Right.
at. So I put that together, and it's kind of involved. So as an alternative, I also put together one that's just mobile food units.
Right.
So it's up to you to decide which way you want to go.
Exactly, and that's kind of one of the issues that I think we should probably resolve before we get into each individual item. So what does everybody think about that? And if we go through it, how do we know? Okay, so we'll go through that. So let's do it this way tonight. And it will be kind of a little bit different in order. And see if this makes sense to everybody. We cover the temporary uses first before we go back to the food truck. And ingress, egress, we can cover that whenever you want. You want to cover it in the beginning or the end?
Your thoughts.
Let's do the ingress, egress at the end. It's pretty technical. So this is what I suggest we do. We do the special events, we go through it, and then we kind of make a determination at this point in time whether we want to include it together with the food trucks. And then we'll cover the food truck. And maybe even just keep it both in our mind, but not make any decisions on the special events. Just kind of get an understanding like what we did with the food truck, which I'm sorry everybody missed it, but Rob did a beautiful presentation last meeting on food trucks and how they operate, and, just explain the whole issue. So, but why don't we go ahead and do that? And I guess I will turn it over to Rob to talk about special events. Question,
Public comment at the beginning. I don't have a copy of the agenda.
public comments are at the end.
Okay, thank you.
So also, everybody in the audience, tonight is a workshop. Workshops are simply items where we discuss what we want to do with code changes and the like. They're not any type of a finalized version at this point. They're just simply gathering input, but it's not, sit down, drag out, oh, I gotta have this, I gotta have this type of thing with a workshop. We're just trying to get all the information in first to understand that. Once we do a workshop, we come up with a reasonable draft of what we want to have, and we come up with our final recommendations. Then we have a hearing on it. And in the hearing, at that point in time, becomes the serious discussion of taking public comments, and it's a lot more strict formal format in that regard. One of the things I always encourage everybody to, you can participate in the workshops, but you have to stick to topic. If we're talking about special events, we talk about special events. We don't go into other subjects. If we go, if we're talking about food trucks, we talk about food trucks. And, we got to keep the flow going too. Just so you know, and everybody's aware of what a workshop is. I know, well, at least I know Shirley's been to the hearings, and Alan, I think you've been to a hearing too. They're a lot stricter. They're very, you have certain times to say certain things, and it's only on certain items. But a workshop's a little bit more, I have a little bit more flexibility, but we do have to keep it moving. Okay, Rob.
So you're asking me to introduce the draft for temporary uses?
Exactly.
Okay, so that draft is an adaptation of a section from the Oregon Small Cities Model Code. And it's been modified to include the features that that you commissioners indicated you wanted at your last workshop. So the temporary uses that are in the model code include seasonal and special events, temporary sales offices for subdivisions, which I don't think we've ever had in Lakeside, but it could happen someday. And the third category is temporary buildings, trailers, kiosks, and other structures. And that's the section that the model code says would apply to mobile food units. But then doesn't name them specifically there. Do you want me to go into any more detail in that?
No, basically, this is pretty much right out of the model code. I have, I think, a lack of understanding about the code here, because, and maybe other people do too, is when I think about a special event, I think about experience, 2022 or something like that, 3-day event and that type of thing. And I'm noticing in the code here that they're very specific to like month duration times. 30 days to 60 days and the type of thing. I don't know if they're really addressing the short term. And like you said, this is straight out of the model code too. So,
well, the only duration the model code recommends in terms of days is a maximum.
yeah. So then the city would have the discretion to say this is only a 3-day event, or
well, typically your event organizer does that.
yeah. Well, this city would have the discretion to say this is only a 3-day event if we adopt
permit.
this. If we get a permit. Not as far as in the land use code, But as far as the city manager deciding on some of these,
Well, I don't believe there's anything in here that would give a city administrator that discretion. So if that's what you want, you would have to add that.
okay,
It's not written that way.
yeah, I know, I had noticed. Okay, that was just my biggest question. So why don't we go through each of the sections? Seasonal and special events. I see you added the term seasonal in here.
Now
Uh,
that's from the model code.
Oh, it is. Oh,
I
you
just-
highlighted as whether we really need it. I got you.
right.
I got a black and white copy here, so.
His colored copy is a yellow indicates you need to make an agreement on a parameter, and the blue indicates the commission should consider whether how to add.
So do we want to set up a seasonal type of situation? If we go seasonal, we're talking about going out, what, 120 days at least?
I don't think that's what they meant. I don't think they meant an event that lasts a whole season. I think
Okay.
they mean an event that occurs at one season of the year. It's, a repeated thing, like your Christmas
Like
festival
Halloween
or
thing or something.
your 4th of July parade, or it's something that is a seasonal event.
It
Yeah.
looks like in here when I go through it, it's talking about transient business. And then it tells you what all these things are transient business. And the transient business, it says 30 for locations, 30 or more consecutive days constitutes a permanent location.
That's a different section than they're
Yeah,
discussing.
it's the one before it. It's the section before where he's at.
Which section are you talking about? The
Go
first
into,
paragraph?
when you go into his draft,
Hmm,
okay, he's got definitions to be added,
right,
okay, and transient business. Okay, and transient business incorporates all the stuff that we're talking about,
No,
no?
transient business, there's 3 sections to this draft. There's special events. There's a temporary sales office for a subdivision or a model home in a subdivision. And then the 3rd section is a transient business. Now, I put the definition at the beginning of the draft because it's in a different section of the municipal code,
got it,
and you have to have the definitions first.
right,
And Carl's correct, the draft definition there requires setting a parameter for what constitutes temporary or transient business. And you have to decide whether or not you want to determine that a business that stays in a location for a particular length of time then becomes permanent. That's pretty standard in codes in other jurisdictions and in the model code. They say it's transient use, it only lasts for so long.
okay. And so what the model code is saying, 30 or more consecutive days?
No,
No.
Oh,
anything that's in the model code in a pair of brackets
right,
is something that they're saying this is an optional thing, and whatever city is thinking of adopting this code needs to decide what they want to
Right.
put here.
and they filled in the blank, or is that what you're filling, 30 or more?
No, that was theirs. But that's their flag to say, think about it. What works for your city?
Exactly. So, I mean, as far as transient business, 30 days. What type of temporary business? would we think we would have in Lakeside? I guess is a good way to look at it. Yeah,
You want my input?
that's great. Yes, I do.
If you want my input,
Okay.
I'll be there.
So transient.
How nice, you raised your hand, that's great.
I'm a teacher. That's
Oh, that's what I appreciate.
in my thinking about definitions, your
Mhm.
transient participants might be the ones who come to the Osprey Point events where you have the Oktoberfest or you have so they're less than 3 days. But it's all up to how you define it.
Right,
And then it all has to do with what you want to allow. So you have mobile transient business, right? So that could be food trucks, or that could be those temporary tents that Too Shy Brewing is gonna wanna set up there.
Yeah.
Right?
well, and then you also think about a Halloween store. That would easily go 30 days.
That could be seasonal rather than transient, though, so far as definitions.
But by definition, I think if you have a business in town for more than 30 days, it's when you need a regular business license that's seen as a more permanent business in town. And anything up until that 30-day limit would be defined as temporary.
I'm not sure about that. I thought it was a business license.
The intention here is not so much about whether you need a business license or not. It's what kind of development standards apply. So if you're having a permanent business, it's usually in a building that's built to codes and connected to utilities and all of that good stuff.
There's still a relation between the dates. You know what I mean? If you're gonna come and do
Well-
something that's coming code, then you got a 30-day limit.
And food trucks kind of, as well as other businesses, kind of create that gray zone that you guys are trying to define, if I'm not.
Yeah,
misread.
That's right.
Yeah,
So if you guys just guide us on what you'd like to define first, I'm trying to follow, but there's no page number, so I'm not sure which item you want to discuss first.
well, when you're thinking about a transient business, what do you want to see around? And for how long? Do you want to see well, and I guess it's up to the city's discretion, but I don't want to see some guy in a 10-by-10 canopy sitting out there for 30 days.
Right.
Yeah,
They have to get a permit anyways, don't they? It's right there.
yeah, well, and that would be the city discretion at that point. They would still be in the transient
Yeah. There
category.
you go.
All the way.
Oh,
So in definition, a temporary is anything that is pre-planned that is going to be in town for a duration of 14 days or less. That's a temporary.
Those definitions
That's temporary event, temporary food establishments.
under Oregon food trucks or
That's
Department of Health and Safety? Where is
Yeah, and that can be a lot of different
that?
things. And this is where the city gets to decide, because I'm not sure if you're familiar with the model code. The model code is what the state provides us saying, hey,
Mhm.
this is what it is, so. Do we
And
wanna work on this number now or not? For transient business, how long?
Yeah.
Because, or are we missing input that we need on this?
Well, I don't know, we seem to jump someplace because you were going to go in order of the sections, and the first section is seasonal and special events.
Right, I jumped in the wrong spot, and then we went back, to where you were mentioning, Carl, at the beginning.
That
because
was
we
my-
didn't need to do the definition.
That
first.
was the definition, right?
Right, and then, so we took a step backwards, and we're stuck on that step. Okay,
I think, what they are saying, the guidelines from the health department and some of their definitions are a great idea to have incorporated, because then they're going hand in hand. The health department saying 14 days is temporary. Lakeside can say 30.
Can you,
And I think
can you
their
tell us
input-
where the 14 days is from?
Yeah, that's what we're getting the website for you right now.
it's
I mean, 30.
It's on basis, I'm trying to find something directly from Oregon,
Mhm.
but ultimately, state by state, different states have.
Yeah, they're all different.
Local control.
But ultimately 14 days is kind of the common denomination of a temporary event. If it's 14 days or less, that's temporary, which does require a special event permit
license, yeah.
from the city in which they're doing the event from, as long as it's pre-planned.
Therefore able to, monitor.
Correct.
Well, why don't we, at this point, pencil in 14?
I like that better than 30
So-
days.
Yeah, I like it better than 30.
Oregon says to a maximum of 30 days.
I'm hearing two different things because you're talking about the definition of a transient business and our audience member here just talked about a special event. Those are two different things.
So those are two different things.
Mhm. They are.
Okay,
Well, they can be synonymous, but only if you set it up that way.
A special event is not a transient
Okay.
business.
so, okay, now I got you wrong, what you're saying. So a transient business is something that pops up for a certain period of time.
Like a swap meet.
Like a swap, and so we don't get into things like swap meets and stuff like that. Let's look at other types of transient businesses. They would be things like door closing. That's a transient business. Or they would be like the Halloween shop, which will go a month or so. Or those type of things as compared to a special event. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Rob, because I think I understand you now. The special event is something that would be up for 14 days. A
Or
week,
less.
or 3 days.
Typically, yeah.
Okay,
Right now, Rob says that the current Lakeside code sets an event a length of 4 days or less, unless an extension is granted by the commission.
and that's special event.
That's a special event.
Not a transient business.
Not a
So I
transient
understand.
business.
Okay, good.
The other sorts of businesses that might be temporary that go into the month-long business are things like kayak rentals or
Yes.
jet ski rentals, other things that are
Exactly.
very seasonal. That may only pop up for a couple of weeks during the summer.
Right. Now, as business owners, those of you who are business owners out there, beware. If you start doing things like that, you're cutting into your own business. They're only there for 30 days. I'm not sure that it's necessarily a good thing for the city or not.
I can speak on that to some degree as the head of the business association is that I think that most of the business owners in town are looking at a much bigger picture. And they understand that we need attractions of all kinds and
Well,
services of all kinds.
I'm
to
looking
get
at it.
involved. I understand.
I understand where you're coming
But
from.
we
but
have the
I'm just giving
ability-
you my experience.
Okay, fixed. Thank you.
Okay, so that's
Thank you.
drive-through services. That means driving. This also has traffic issues. Off-site impacts. The use does not create adverse off-site impacts, including vehicle traffic, noise, odors, vibrations, flares, lights that affect the adjoining uses in a manner in which other uses allowed outright in the district do not affect the adjoining uses. Utilities. The use of adequately served by sewer, septic, water, electricity as applicable. Utilities can be connected temporarily to such service without placement of lines, wires, hoses, similar temporary utility connection infrastructure across the sidewalk or similar designated pedestrian walkway. The use of internal combustion engines, electric generators is not permitted. These are all so far from 5 to 9 sound to be pretty standard things.
I have a thought.
Uh-huh.
The use of the generators is something that should be looked at specifically. For instance, during the holiday event, we had a generator set up to run Christmas lights down at the end of the street, you know what I mean? A lot of food trucks will use a generator for whatever reason. If that generator is not violating a noise code of some sort, why would we want to
Okay.
limit how they get electricity?
Okay, good thing to look at.
And a little bit more wording is emergency use only on the generators. Could be applicable anyways, because we do have a lot of food on board.
Okay, so
Or a disaster situation,
Right.
or you never know, a food truck becomes very valuable when all the restaurants are shut down.
Good. So we'll look at generators and see where we can use and how that fits into everything. All right. Maintenance of sidewalks, walkways. Use or adjacent to sidewalks or other designated pedestrian ways shall maintain all types of minimum unobstructed pedestrian passage area of 36 inches. That's it. Wow. And avoid creating safety hazards for pedestrians and vehicles. Unattached signage. One sandwich board type sign may be placed in the right of way adjacent to the use, subject to a 36-inch pedestrian passage clearance indicated above. How does that fit in with the sign? It can be
Consistent.
separate.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Precedence of special events. Should the time and location of the approved temporary use of structured intersect with the time and location of an approved permitted special event, the use or structure must vacate the area subject to the event permit unless separate approval has been granted by the event operator. So they don't say which one takes precedent.
Yes, it does.
Mhm.
The event takes precedence.
The event takes precedent. Oh, over, that's right, because we're in the transient business, so special event takes precedent over the transient business. Okay. Mobile transient business. A transient business may operate as a mobile business. A mobile business shall not remain in any location for more than 15 minutes.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's intended to allow things like ice cream trucks.
Allowed for you to
And-
go to a place of business, serve food in a very short manner of time, and then return to another place.
Well, it's like deliveries.
I guess the
It's similar to
definition of
delivery.
mobile transit business needs to be made more clear, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a lot of that in big cities where the food trucks go from business to business to business. You know, and they kind of have a time frame,
15 minutes pretty tight even in that situation. I
15
agree with
minutes
the
is about
ice
2
cream
hamburgers.
truck.
Well, for the way you were explaining it, 15 minutes is plenty of time.
Yeah,
Get somebody
delivery
something,
or-
Get the heck out, right?
If you're
Yeah.
just delivering, but if you're like pulling up to the city hall and you're cooking for all of you guys, and that's gonna take 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
So you move from parking space to parking space. There's always a solution.
I know there is. I know there is.
So,
You got a driver, they're pulling you forward. as
There you
you're cooking.
so number 14, and that's obviously, I should mark that as one you need to tell them to.
We should kind of
Transient businesses in residential zones. No transient businesses shall operate in residential zones in any one location longer than 15 minutes. Yeah, okay. Alcohol. The sale and consumption of alcohol shall not be permitted at the location of a temporary use or transient business. Except in instances where such a specific approval as an aspect of special event permit application. Is there state laws in regards to that? too?
Well, they have to have a special permit, that's like the group fast.
That's like having two shy come to our grand opening at the end of
Yeah.
the intersection.
Yeah, there's a special.
But they get a permit
Yes,
from
they
the
do.
state to
And they
say,
have
hey, we can
insurance
do
to
it.
Yeah.
temporarily.
OLCC has a special event permit for those people.
Okay,
Typically, yeah, when they come, they bring their own service
Mhm.
permits, that
And it
doesn't
has to be
generally
roped
fall
off.
on the.
Right.
Yeah,
or the event.
inside of a.
Roped off and cannot leave here with.
Can I share one more thought before we move on?
Okay.
On 14, it just came to mind, when you limit transient businesses to only 15 minutes, there are some examples of businesses that are fairly popular that we might want to consider. There are things like mobile dog washing, car detailing. There are services and businesses that will want to, come to an active and busy town that want to take more than 15 minutes. I can understand limiting it to whatever we decide, you know what I mean? But 15 minutes is very restrictive.
If I could, going back to the definition of transient business that we started out with. It says a transient business does not include service work where the operator drives to a particular premises in order to perform a specific service.
Okay, thank you.
problem solved.
That's why that's in there.
Sound amplification. No amplification of sound shall be permitted by transient businesses. A music player is acceptable as long as the sound does not extend beyond the immediate vicinity of the transient business and does not generate complaints from neighbors, businesses, customers, or community members.
Seems to me that first sentence could just be eliminated. That'd be great.
What?
The first sentence talks about amplification, and then it goes on to say a music player. And then you're trying to define what is amplification and what is a music player. You just say a music player is acceptable as long as it's not intrusive, which is what it said. You could eliminate that first sentence and it'd be really clear.
The intention of the first sentence is to prevent someone from being out on the street corner with a bullhorn.
No, I understand that, but in
Yeah.
that case, it would then violate these other nuisance verbiage.
Well, I like the first sentence kind of sets the tone of you don't want to be disturbing people with noise. Building codes. Structure complies with applicable building codes. I don't even think we have those for temporary, do we? I don't think we.
Yeah, that would be my question as an event organizer, is then what is the code on 10x10 canopy?
Yeah, I know. And especially with the winds here,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. I used to have a rental business, which we rented out the canopies at 20x30s and 10x10 and all that type of stuff. Man, those things had to be staked in the asphalt.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I digress. Duration of placement of temporary structure, except where specifically authorized by the city body. The length of time that a temporary structure may remain on site shall not exceed a certain amount of time or a total amount of time. And that's something we'll, save for a later discussion. Licensing, the applicant has obtained and will maintain all required licenses and permits, including a Lakeside business license and/or right-of-way use permit as applicable.
So is that saying that any temporary business that pops up, comes to town for one day, needs to come in City Hall first to get a business license?
I don't think is that a transient business?
Yeah, that's what that means.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yep.
Well, they're in here, in our town doing business.
I'm already doing it.
I mean,
Let's
that's
be clear.
And it is a clarification because almost every city has some sort of event or temporary service permit that you have to obtain. And sometimes that requires, if you go from county to county, you have to be inspected again by the next county in order to operate.
Yes, yeah,
So,
especially with food trucks,
yes,
yeah.
Is there a scenario, just for thought, where a temporary business comes to town on days that the City Hall is not open, and times when City Hall is not open?
Well, they shouldn't be planning their visit a day in advance.
A little bit.
but
Just a thought, I mean, if we as a community want to deny a guy who has poor planning.
Yeah.
The rules are the rules, they need to plan ahead.
I'm not arguing it,
Yeah.
They need to get their permit.
All right, so we covered licensing. Litter cleanup. The applicant of a temporary use shall keep the area within 25 feet of the temporary use clean and free of litter generated by the temporary use, and dispose of the litter in their own container receptacle. Use of city trash receptacles for trash from temporary uses is prohibited. Visual appearance from street. All items visible from the street shall be kept in good repair and be maintained in a safe and clean condition. Fire inspection. Any temporary use involved in flammable materials, fuel shall pass a fire safety inspection. Or the local fire department shall indicate that such inspection is not required. Yeah, I mean, possible, something to think about though. Okay, 23. The transient business that occupies a single location for a period in excess of whatever days consecutive is considered to be permanent. Any transient business which becomes permanent must be permanently connected with sewer, water, and power. Elimination of downcast of shielded lighting when operating during business hours of darkness. We don't have that in our code now, do we? We don't have any designs there.
We don't.
Yeah. Okay. Considered as a new commercial development and subject to all the requirements of a new commercial development. Commissioners should consider any variances or exceptions to these standards should be allowed. If so, which standards and under what circumstances who can grant them? So that's our homework. Commissioners should consider whether the decision of, I'll get you in just a moment. Commissioners should consider whether the decision of the city administrator in A is subject to an appeal. And if so, who would rule on the appeal and what would be the process? Commissioner homework. Okay, you had a question?
On 23A there, I can understand why you want transient business to become more permanent, but there are permanent businesses that don't require use of a sewer, for instance, or use of water. So under those terms, you're saying that no matter what type of business it is, it needs to be hooked to sewer, water. I understand that.
Oh, they have a body.
Mobile food trucks, as long as we have a place to dump gray water.
And all that's dictated by the health department for the most part.
Correct.
Right, and one of the situations that we could be talking about is that the mobile souvenir shop, right, isn't gonna need water.
But that wouldn't be applicable, I suppose.
Yeah, this is a permit. When it becomes permanent, it goes into a totally different thing. It's not a mobile food unit. It's a business, and a business, if it's got a building or something like that, you know, everybody's required to be hooked up to the sewer, so, and water.
Right, so like the Monteria there at 721's been there for more than 30 days, but isn't permanently connected to sewer and water.
Yeah,
And so they would be in violation if their truck doesn't need sewer and water.
It's a food truck and they don't.
Right, I mean, what,
permanent.
they can go down,
Yeah,
they can go to other
permanently
locations.
located. It
Just
doesn't
our
mean
needs.
If they don't have a toilet, then sewer isn't applicable.
Right,
If they have a contained water system that's approved by
Like
the health
RVs.
department, then water isn't applicable. Is that
Right.
reasonable thinking?
This is something that we will disagree on.
Where do they
I
go?
mean,
they don't
simply,
like
where do they get the
RVs,
water?
they move
Yeah,
like
yeah,
those
just like
trucks.
every- where do they dump if they're permanent? If they're permanent, they're not moving.
yeah, but the
So,
access to
correct, it's like-
People loving house sewage
If
is
we're
not
gonna
a
use,
good
if we're
thing.
gonna use Monteria as an example, they've not sat there for 30 days
I-
consistently. They move regularly.
I would actually prefer not to bring individuals.
I agree, but it was already discussed. So in that example, they move all the
Let's
time.
not talk about individual businesses. It's just not appropriate. We want to talk about in general, what is the say?
Right.
Yeah,
Those businesses typically do. Almost every food
Okay.
truck in our town moves. on
okay,
site.
very good.
Under county code, we have different things that we can do with our wastewater, which is portable totes. to
Now,
transfer to
under
another
county
town.
code, I don't believe it talks about it being permanent in any situation. Right?
They call it their home base, but they
It's
can
a-
move at any time. They're
a
always
home
a mobile
base.
unit.
I can
but they
drive it
still
wherever I want.
move.
Very
That's
But
their
it
home
has
base.
to move, right? It's not permanent. Not
It's
like.
still-
I'm gonna be in
it has
this
to-
It's
location.
permanently home base there, meaning that's where it's gonna come back on a more common basis.
That's
Because they're
where it's gonna
required that by
come
law.
from, Right.
But then they may be gone for 20 days of the month.
Or they may stay.
Right, they may be there more than 30 days.
And that's why, and that kind of gets more into the food truck situation. So we'll talk about that more and. Yeah,
But
we'll have to-
food truck and the transient both say the same thing under that section that we have to, that if you're there permanently, that you have to be hard connected to the sewer.
Right.
You can't hard connect this food truck.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
There's no sewer in a food truck. They have gray water,
So-
but no sewage.
that would mean that.
Gray water is sewage.
Yeah.
As far as the DEQ is concerned, gray water is sewage.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But they also say that you can use a portable tank to
Long as you have a dump site.
transport and dump.
Right.
As long as you have a dump site on premise.
Because logically, they're not very much different than every of the hundreds of RVs that are in the city.
Exactly the same concept as an RV.
Well, an RV, if it's hooked up, if an RV is, what, 120 days? They have to be hooked up to sewer.
Right, 30 days for the businesses. According to this graph.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, 120 days, yeah. So an RV that is over 120 days has to be hooked up to sewer.
That's a good number.
Black water, gray water. Difference is the difference between black water and gray water. You got gray water on a food truck, you don't have black.
No, we're not still sewage.
Yeah. And that kind of gets where, you know.
Right, and
what
I
type of
guess that's
city
what
you
you're
wanna
trying to
be,
tease out.
you know,
It's kind of a gray area.
where you want to draw the health line type of thing, so.
Yeah.
But following health inspections through Coos County and through the state of Oregon allows us to transport mobily
Right on.
the
Yeah.
dry line.
I think that's the important point, is where the health department already regulates some of these things, we should allow them to regulate
Right.
them.
We're gonna be more
Remember-
restrictive than the health department.
Remember, we're not the county, we're not the state.
So-
I tend to like to baby the city of Lakeside. I mean, I have ownership in the city of Lakeside, not the ownership in the county or what the
I
state.
think almost
That's
all
who
of us
we-
in that room feel that way.
Right.
As do we.
100%.
I'm sure everyone of you do too. Right.
Yeah.
So we're all in agreement on that.
So think about the intent for a minute, and that might help the conversation. So if somebody wants to put in a restaurant, they'll come in and they'll put in a building and it'll be all done to standards and all that. There's nothing wrong with food trucks, but you don't want somebody to bring in a food truck, park it in one place, never move it, and then use the truck as a substitute for an actual building. Right? And so if that's what you'd like not to have happen is, development by increments like that, then how do you ensure that the mobile food units actually stay mobile? Right?
Is that the goal?
And that's pretty much the goal. Is to make sure that mobile food units are really mobile.
And then we gotta
Okay,
decide
move.
what we think mobile is, does that mean they look? Day, or you know what I mean?
Correct. And those are the big questions.
Or does it just have to stay on its wheels and be able to move at any given point? in time?
And that's another approach to it.
Right, and also, I would posit the group just to consider also that we, as food trucks, we have our insurance to answer to as well, and they don't want us to be mobile because there's increased risk to the interior. And so we're under several different, right now, because it's a new industry in this area, and so there are a lot of different agencies that are compelling by their directives.
Yeah, I remember doing research on it. And, yeah, all over the place.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a gray area.
Yeah. Which is why we're getting into it, and that's a very good segue into food truck.
One more thing to think about
Sure.
is while I do agree that you don't want mobile units coming in and displacing permanent locations, we should figure out ways to make exceptions or room for what is becoming more popular are these mobile food unit courts or places that are designed and built for that use.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that. Let's find ways of doing both where we don't jeopardize our permanent businesses and we add an additional, benefit by having mobile food trucks. I mean, they can be a complement to the permanent businesses too.
And many
If
places
they are handled correctly. As long as they're not cannibalizing permanent businesses.
From the business, and the business association is almost every food service business in town, and through discussions we have, none of them have expressed any fear that the food trucks are taking people out the door. I understand the point, I really do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as we're discussing the
Yeah.
business in general in
Well-
town, they see it as a very positive.
Consider my comments a warning.
Whereas where you are.
You can take my comments any way you want, but just, I've been in businesses where we do a lot of territorial maps and that type of thing, so. It's just a warning,
No,
that's
I
all it is,
Heard you twice, thank you.
yeah. See, I'm
Yeah.
talking. All right, so let's, 7:30, let's move on to the mobile food units.
That's pretty much covered.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we decided to get into the special event. Because a lot of that has to do with that. All right.
Or wasn't it whether it was combined or separate, right?
Right, so
Oh, yeah, we have.
I made you two drafts.
So
Yeah,
that one
yeah.
just, it wasn't just for special events, it was C included food trucks. So
Right,
whether we
and that
wanna
one
have-
did include food trucks, so.
So whether we want it combined all in one or a food truck is gonna be.
So wouldn't we have some more things with food trucks than just what was in special events?
So, you started out working on a code for mobile food units. And then you said you wanted it to be broader and to include other forms of temporary uses. So that's the draft you just read through is the broader one.
Right,
That's the one I
Special
think we should be
events.
working.
gotcha,
And then the
right.
subdivision or the division office
Right.
and then.
The other draft was just for mobile food units, doesn't cover special events
So,
or
what is
anything
there-
else.
I think we should be working on what we just covered.
I think so too. I think it's much more comprehensive. And it will cover a lot of the other,
But otherwise, if we work on just the mobile food trucks, 6 months from now, we'll be working on special events.
exactly, and they won't coincide like they want them to. Okay. Good, so what we'll do at this point is the mobile food units. The original draft will drop that and we'll continue with the full special transient business, special event draft. Okay, before we get into egress, ingress, egress, why don't we go ahead and do public comments? So we can kind of give people a break before we get into the technical about streets and stuff like that. So if anybody has any public comments, when we do public comments, I'd like you to still go up to the podium, say who you are, where you're from, you know, and you don't have to give them your street address or anything like that. Just say citizen of Lakeside, business owner of Lakeside, that type of thing. And feel free to comment. So I switched the order a little bit tonight, just so people who don't want to get into the other part, and this might be where we end, you know. Okay,
All right, so my name's Adam Hand. I'm a resident of Lakeside. I also own a business here. And I'm a member of the Business Association here. Really, I think most of the comments have already had an opportunity to share. And I do appreciate that, but the biggest picture is from the business's point of view. We think that because Lakeside is building up from a pretty low spot, that we have to be very careful not to restrict businesses in ways that we don't foresee here in these few conversations. The world changes every day. So as we're creating these regulations, we got to not look to be more controlling than we must. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Address things that are critically issued, but where there's room for leeway, we have to leave room for creativeness and leeway and people to be able to come and be productive here. If we start micromanaging too much, we create a lot of, you know, businesses have choices. When they look at the map, they say, where do I want to be on the Oregon coast? They, you know, and they come to ours and they see a little more restriction, they pass us by. And we as a community can't afford that. That's all. Thank you.
okay, well, thank you. We do appreciate the comments, and I think most of us agree with it. So, okay, Sean?
I thank you for the workshop and thank you for the feedback and all. Shirley Bennell, Lakeside resident, small business advocate. And that is my only request tonight is that when I found out that there was a food truck meeting and I reached out to some of the food trucks who didn't know anything about the meeting, I was truly disheartened because month after month, we go about without inviting the businesses. So if there's really, their legal notice of on the website here at McKay's, I'm asking you as appointed officials, you guys share the meetings on your Facebook pages. You guys, pick up the phone, you're privy to the business license here. You had all their phone numbers at your hand. I don't have that. It took me all day, trying to contact the 6 food truck owners that are here in Lakeside. If adjustments aren't made to this draft, basically, all 6 food trucks in Lakeside are in violation. So invite them to the party, include them in the conversation, and like back up what Adam said, being more restrictive than what the health department requires, it doesn't seem reasonable. Just like the event permitting needs to be 180 days, not reasonable, that's not even in the Lakeside codes. City manager doesn't want it that way. I invite her to the conversation then too, to be a part of the next workshop. Please, I wanna see more people sharing these meetings and getting the word out to the public. I'm real tired. Lady shares a lot, is exhausting. Thank you.
It is notified that we are the first and third Thursday of every month. We have the commission.
Yes, and Rob consistently and always puts it out on time, as far as I know.
Actually, the agenda,
100%.
I don't think anybody's questioning,
Yeah.
what is, you know, whether or not the legal requirement. I think
So
she's
what I
asking-
would ask is contact the,
No, I'm asking you guys as
Facebook.
appointed officials, I see you on Facebook, share the information more, let the public know. If nothing else, these people in our small community are our friends and family. If it's not a legal requirement, it's just a common courtesy.
we do put out notice.
Yeah, no one questions that.
Yeah.
It's just as my
And
neighbor,
it's a lot better than.
as my neighbor, if you're gonna have a discussion about me, it might be
Yeah.
reasonable to think you would say, hey, neighbor, this is about your type of business. You
Right.
should come on down.
And I put something out on the Lakesonian. One person showed up, I think. You
Well,
know,
look at how many I can get to come to every meeting if
Well,
you
good.
folks want, but
and
you
you're all.
guys are the appointed ones.
Person every meeting.
No,
until-
no, she's asking
No,
for a special-
absolutely not.
No,
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Can I
Okay, we're kind of we're getting out of order. Who's the next person who wants to make public comments? You get one, Adam, only one. Yes. Does anybody else would like to make public comments? And we want to be fair, we just don't want 1 or 2 people, we want everybody to have an opportunity.
I was questioning that, and I thought we were having a conversation.
No, it was, we want to do things a little bit formal in regards to that. No, you guys don't want to.
And that's what I did.
Sorry,
I
I-
picked up the phone and called every single one of them. I don't even know some of the business owners, but I let them know about the meeting, and that's all
Okay.
I'm asking you guys to do as our friends. When it's
Gotcha.
something about half of the retail businesses in the city, let's do a little extra than the legal requirement for public notice. Let's actually get the team to play. They don't know, they can't come and know if no one gives them any kind of notice. You guys just even share it on your Facebook page, more
We
people will
can't
know.
legally require you to do that. What we're saying is, as a good neighbor, as someone really interested in the process and getting the right people in the room for the conversation, it's well worth reaching out to a handful of people.
And the
who are
six.
specifically
Gotcha.
interested.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand where you're coming from. We want to do it as I don't want to say bland, but as neutral as possible, which is why we use postings, which is why we use the city website and everything like that. So,
It's really
you know,
neutral if you
we're
share
not,
it.
and we want to afford everybody the same opportunity of seeing the information. And I guess that's pretty much,
What they're saying is that using the the McKay's and posting it on the website isn't getting to everybody.
It's been
Correct.
proven. I mean, if you use the attendance of any of these meetings as a gauge, it's proven that those things are not reaching the public.
At all.
Well,
The
that
first
is,
and the third Thursday of each,
yes.
part of that, though.
You and I can understand that, but your everyday citizen who's not
Okay,
part of the.
okay. Let's put a stop to this discussion because we're going in circles. It's not really going in anywhere. I take the criticism to heart. I definitely do, trust me. Believe me. If I can figure out a way that I think is appropriate, I'll definitely try to do it. I mean, I mentioned this to you earlier, Shirley, that I was struggling with that. And we did put out something on Lakeside. That was something, not a big thing, but it was better than nothing. And Rob has been really good about consistently putting out the minutes every single time. And any changes or anything like that, we've stuck to our agendas. We've never thrown anything new in, so.
His packets are more timely than other entities, for sure,
Well,
over time.
But we're only working. You know how I am about that. I'm very box oriented. All right, well, that's it for public comments. Does anybody have the energy to go on to ingress, egress stuff? Or you want to call it quits for the night? Let's go on. Let's continue. You give me an opportunity like that. And this might be a really quick discussion on this. By the way, I really appreciated everybody showing up tonight. I thought we had a good conversation. If you think I'm a little bit too demanding, kind of shoot me a note somewhere in private, say, hey, Mark, you're too much of a control freak, not allowed or something like that. You don't have to discuss it in public.
We'll communicate better if you promise to.
We'll try. We'll try.
Thank you for all that you do and all that you dedicate.
All right, you guys have a good evening. All right.
You're a trooper. You're a trooper.
Well,
You're just kind of quiet.
You guys, I like to listen. I sit back and listen and take it all in.
It's
And I
good.
can see both sides and
Yeah.
I see where, you guys do an amazing job. And keeping his cool, he did very well.
Yeah, he always
Yeah.
does, that's why he's sitting there.
Yes, he's very good at his job. I see that. I don't know.
Is that why I'm sitting here?
That's why you're sitting there, you handle the
I
building.
think you guys said I had to do it again.
Oh, well, okay, just wait.
Well, and your jobs aren't easy.
No, it's not easy.
It's,
And anybody that wants to come in here, they're welcome to run through this. It's a
Well,
here,
yeah,
Property management never sleeps. Yeah, there's no
Exactly.
room for extras for me. But I do see you guys' job and I think you do an amazing job.
we are trying to really do a lot of good for Lakeside.
Yeah, it's
It's-
a lot.
It's
It is.
yes.
You've always got
last
the people
year,
over here wanting to pull you
Yeah.
places you don't want to go.
yeah,
And then you gotta find a happy medium.
exactly. And last year was a really tough year about revamping the code
Yeah.
and the zones. But now that we got through that, I think we all
That's all he was on
feel
laws.
very comfortable in what we're doing, so it makes
But
us job
sure.
easier.
Tonight you said, we'll just go through it from the start and that way we all understand what's in the paperwork, because we've read it.
Yeah, I think
And
everybody
give the
needed to
public what
understand
they've
it.
read it.
Yeah, I think everybody needed to understand it. I know you guys read it and everything, but I think it's better when you go through the whole thing, then everybody can speak from the same. You can try to have everybody speak from the same facts.
It is a
Yeah.
workshop and I didn't want
And it
to
is a
do it
workshop.
again, but I thought it was good for the public input. Yeah.
Well, good. So let's get into this ingress egress. Ingress egress is how you get
In and out.
in and out. In and out from your properties. And then Rob said he'll do the formatting. I guess there's only do we really want to go through each of these items? I mean, it's pretty much all technical.
It is.
So why don't we concentrate on the highlighted areas and any of Rob's comments here and see if we need to do some adjustments. So purpose and intent is fine. Permit required. It says the city planning director reviews permit requests for connections to city streets through a type 1-2 procedure. The Coos County Roadmaster reviews the permit request for connections to county streets.
And the reason that that's in brackets and in yellow is, I don't know if you want to include it. And if you do, then you have to decide whether you want the decision-making on access to be made by type 1 or type 2 procedure. And I'm going to suggest type 1 because we don't have any type 2 procedures in Lakeside.
You win. No problem there. I do have a concern. The city planning director, I like that. It's not the city administrator because they shouldn't have any technical knowledge about traffic and the type.
Well, it also prevents your city administrator from assigning it to the billing clerk or the city
Right.
clerk or somebody else who doesn't know how this should be done.
So would the assumption be that the planning director will consult with the engineering, the city engineer
Well, it shouldn't be necessary.
with ingress egress,
No,
traffic control?
no. It shouldn't be necessary.
I guess with everything in here is pretty much straightforward, so.
Right.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I'm fine with I'm fine with everything in there. The city planning director, I think, should be the person. Of course, Coos County would handle their own. And type 1 procedure.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's all fine to me.
Yeah. Traffic study requirements. The city in reviewing the development proposal or other action. Oh, I'm sorry.
It just came up to me.
Sure.
In my mind. The county roadmaster going through there, like, basically on the property down here and
Mhm.
on that where they need that. What's the response time for the county to act on something like that? You know?
I don't know offhand, and I don't even recall if there was a time frame specified in the county's codes for ingress and egress. It
And
may be there, it may not.
I don't believe they ever even applied.
I'm pretty sure they didn't.
So
Yeah, well, I just,
it's even longer.
yeah.
Yeah,
They have a specified application process. There's specific items the applicant
Right.
has to provide, but I don't recall a decision timeline
Yeah.
being there.
I know when I had them come out to check on a permit, they were out within like 2 days.
Oh.
But that was, that was kind of more, I guess, an emergency type thing. Yeah,
That office is generally pretty responsive.
Okay, that's what I just was curiosity.
yeah. Well, when I talked to them there, the guy was really smart. Yeah, he was better than other people.
Okay, you can go on.
Okay, traffic study requirements. The city in reviewing the development proposal and all other action requiring an approach permit may require a traffic analysis pursuant to section X to determine compliance of the code.
Yeah, we don't have any section on traffic impact analysis.
So I say at this point, we leave that part blank, but still may require traffic impact analysis.
Okay.
Until we, you know,
At some point, you'll want to put together standards for when one is required.
Yeah.
So it's not arbitrary.
but at this point, since we are who we are,
Uh-huh.
we're small potatoes. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those things I need to, and yeah,
I did contact, ODOT one time and put in an application to them. They were gonna come out to look at a property that we have.
Mhm.
And the gentleman that was gonna look at it retired and left, and the next person came in and they said, the city can handle that. We're not even gonna mess with that. You just, whatever the city says, that's what you do. I was like, okay,
On the highway?
on the highway.
Yeah,
Oh my
that's not
God.
right.
Yeah, so I figured we'll revisit it when we're ready, but I'll put in another application, but at that time they must have been in transition because they said that's a
Aye,
city
aye.
thing. I was like, I don't think so.
No, it isn't.
Yeah. That was weird.
yeah, that's.
That's passing the buck.
Well, they lost their application too, so that was the other thing.
So number 3, driveways shall be paved and meet applicable construction standards. Where permeable paving services are allowed or required, such surfaces shall conform to engineering designs, which we don't have.
Okay, so this is kind of weird. Lakeside does have street engineering standards
Oh, that's right.
in the
In the
ordinance for
subdivision.
partitions and
Yeah.
subdivisions, but nowhere else.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you can reference a subdivision for it.
No, you can't.
So how much would it get messy if we just put the line, how many lines of code is it for this situation?
It's pages, so I
Oh.
think it's probably better just to scratch this
Just
out.
leave it on, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the city decision-making body may limit the number of locations. I'm saying let's be consistent and go with city planning director.
Hmm.
Location of connections to street, yeah. Because I can't see the city manager doing something like that.
No, me neither.
I mean, if we say in consultation with the city engineer, that obligates them to talk to the city engineer, doesn't it?
Sorry, what's that?
If we put in like text that says in consultation with the city engineer, that obligates them to actually contact the city engineer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's probably too harsh. I don't like that. I mean, for some
Which number are you thinking about?
number 4, you limit the number or location of connections to a street, or limit the directional traffic and approach.
He's looking to replace the city direction making body with a name for a title.
You know what? I think number 4 and number 5 need to be the planning commission because they're actually talking about street planning.
That's true.
And the decisions that are being discussed there aren't something that you should leave to a staff member on their own.
And that is something that really mess up a city too.
Yeah.
If you have just a bunch of, like, who put 5 entrances onto our main road right now, it might not seem like a big deal. But what if, 8th Street gets really busy? And then you have all these people coming out. Okay, I'm good with that. What do you guys think?
Put in planning commission.
And for 5, Tim?
And number 5 is pretty much only going to come up in the context of development associated with land division. So
Yeah.
that needs to be the planning commission too.
Yeah, that should stay in ours. All right, so that would be both spots in 5 too.
Yep.
Okay, where applicable code requires emergency vehicle access, approaches, driveways shall be designated and constructed to accommodate emergency vehicle apparatus and shall conform to applicable fire protection requirements. The city decision-making body may restrict parking, require signage, or require other public safety improvements pursuant to the recommendations of an emergency service provider. So are they just saying there that somebody at the city makes a decision based upon the fire department telling us we need to do something?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
That's kind of what I got too.
Yeah.
I think number 6 is also in there with 4 and 5. It's going to be something that pops up in the context of development associated with land division.
Yeah. And that would be a planning commission call. Well, what if the fire department tells us to do something and we don't do it?
Well, that would be unwise.
Wise.
I know.
All emergency
I know.
teams have to have where they turn
It's-
around.
That's why I'm
Yeah.
thinking that.
It's your prerogative, but it would be unwise.
Okay. Since it is in that category, it's fine. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I won't always be here.
This is the law.
As it deems necessary for pedestrian safety, the city decision-making body in consultation with the roadway authority as applicable may require traffic calming features such as speed tables, textured driveway surfaces, curb extensions, signage, traffic control devices, or other features to be installed or in the vicinity of a site as a condition of developmental approval. Now, I'm gonna be
Where are you at?
Yeah, we're not.
number 12.
Number
I'm only
12.
doing the
How
yellow.
did you get to 12?
Oh, he's
I
only
only,
the ones.
we're
with
only doing the yellow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, otherwise we don't have a decision.
yellow.
Why does he keep on jumping all over the place? So I think that one, I really think that one should fall underneath the plan commission.
It has to because it's the last bit of that one predicates this as a condition of development approval. So,
Exactly, so,
and the beginning of number 12 limits this to consideration of pedestrian safety only.
Yeah.
So it's pretty specific.
yeah. All right, Carl, we're on number 15.
I see that. Hey there.
Sidewalks or walkways occur adjacent to the roadway. Driveway aprons constructed of concrete shall be installed between the driveway and the roadway edge. The roadway authority may require a driveway apron to be installed outside the required walkway, sidewalk or walkway surface consistent with ADA requirements and to manage surface water runoff. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with concrete, especially with ATVs and stuff like that. I think we need to have something solid.
For permanent.
And this only requires driveway aprons when there's a sidewalk or walkway.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I want to keep pedestrians as safe as possible.
Right.
You know, and dirt and gravel will wear down or whatever. Okay, number 17. City decision-making body may require changes to the proposed configuration, design, and approach, including the number of drive aisles, lanes, surfacing, traffic calming features, allowable turning movements and other changes or mitigation to ensure traffic safety and operation. Again, I think that's planning commission.
Mhm.
And if you guys don't agree or anything, we'll continue on. So I guess we agree on that one.
We're gonna direct traffic.
Okay. Where a new approach onto a state highway or change of use adjacent to a state highway required ODOT approval, the applicant is responsible for obtaining ODOT approval. The city may approve the development conditionally, requiring the applicant first obtain ODOT approval. We've done that with partitions and subdivisions, so I'm thinking that's planning commission. Number 20, where a proposed driveway crosses a culvert or drainage ditch, the city may require developer to install a culvert extending under and beyond the edges of the driveway on both sides of it. We have no such standard here. Because the only culvert or drainage, no, we have drainage ditches.
Right. So we don't have the design standards. So if you cross out the words pursuant to the applicable public works and engineering design standards, you're still requiring the developer to install a culvert, but you're not telling him what standards the culvert has to meet.
Okay, so we just want to remember,
Yeah, until we get standards.
okay.
But how do they know what to build?
Well, they know they have to put in a culvert.
Well,
Well,
okay, what type of a culvert? If we.
Well,
They know they got to extend on both sides of it.
Yeah, culverts.
To be set so far down in the ground and covered with layers to make sure.
How about culvert pursuant to the development
Weight
plan?
limit.
Yeah,
Weight limit, depending on what kind of culvert they use,
Yeah.
they could, it has to be one solid enough to sustain what type of vehicle.
yeah, what type of, and I guess it's the type of vehicle, but they're developing the site,
Right.
so we require an engineer to say, hey, this is what it's supposed to be. Or do we just leave it?
Business as opposed to residential, more traffic, less traffic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is this is applying to a proposed driveway. So this is not necessarily in the context of a partition or a subdivision. This could be any property owner wanting to put in a driveway for any purpose. So I've just bought a lot. It's undeveloped. I'm going to develop it. I'm going to put in a driveway.
but wouldn't they have to have a drainage plan? Only on steep slope, right?
Well, no, you have to have a drainage plan before any building permit is issued.
Right, so that, at that point, that would require them to
But you don't,
identify a culvert, right?
but you, yeah.
So maybe we just leave it as is.
Yeah, we don't have any standards
Right,
to
so
refer
if we
to.
leave it as is, it will be part of the plan and we're covered.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so we're leaving that as is,
well, we're taking out the,
pursuant to applicable.
yeah,
Okay.
we're taking out that and leaving it as it is because they still have to have a drainage plan. And with the drainage plan, they have to show how somebody's gonna get over it.
We have properties that have had culverts in the past that have,
Okay.
and it's on the city property.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter if it's on city property or
No.
not.
No, they're supposed to maintain it,
The adjacent property owner is responsible for it.
yeah.
You got a culvert in the city right of way, the adjacent property owner is responsible for that
Yeah,
culvert.
and they have to actually maintain them.
Well, I'm so glad
Leave
it's on
them
the
out.
other side of the street across from
Aren't
me.
you?
It's not on my side of the street.
There you
What do you mean?
go.
They were going up 8th Street, weren't they cleaning culverts all the way up 8th Street?
Yeah,
But that's a county road.
County road.
yeah,
But when they put that street, when the sidewalks went in, they did not put in drainage. 8th Street did not get the culverts and the drainage. Oh, they'll come back later and do the, and tear up something perfectly. good.
well, yeah, after we have a flood, they'll
Oh,
come
I
back
fussed
to
with
it.
them. I was down there making the shop and I fought with that because I said that doesn't make sense.
All right, so we're on, what, 21? Yes, 21. Except as otherwise required by the applicable roadway authority or waived by the city engineer, temporary driveways providing access to construction sites or staging areas should be paved and gravelled to prevent tracking of mud to adjacent paved streets. I'm thinking city engineer, because they're already looking at the plans and they, you know,
So this is talking about a temporary driveway,
yeah,
which is going to be removed at some point. And it's for access to a construction site. And the purpose, okay, it says it has to be gravelled or paved
right,
unless somebody waives that. And the purpose of the requirement is to prevent tracking of mud onto adjacent paved streets. So is that more appropriately the city engineer or the public works department? Because it doesn't have anything to do with the structure of the driveway. It's just a question of,
I think.
can somebody decide whether it's okay for mud to be tracked onto
Yeah,
the street?
I think that would be a public works at that point. Even though I don't know that a public works person would, well, Dennis would know.
It's either they pave or gravel their temporary driveway or Dennis has to deal with the mud.
Right. Okay. So, number E, we're talking about feet. Can we go with the plumbing standards? Would that be a wise decision? Look at their code and just copy it? Since we don't have a lot of engineering experience.
Okay.
I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah, how would we know it's really appropriate?
I wouldn't.
Yeah, the numbers that are in there are from the model code, but I don't know where they got
Yeah,
them.
and I don't, yeah, who knows, maybe, and then state standard, which might not be as good in a rural area, who knows? Approaching space, except for provided by section H or required by, maintain street maintain, except required to maintain street operations and safety. The following minimum distance shall be maintained between approaches where the distance is measured from the edge of one approach to the edge of another. And I think we follow the county on those. What do you guys think?
Agreed.
Yeah, okay. Vision clearance. No visual obstruction between 3 feet, 8 feet in height shall be placed. That seems to be a pretty much a standard, doesn't it, for 3 feet, 8 feet? Placed in vision clearance areas on streets and intersections as illustrated. And that's, I see that a lot. Minimum vision clearance may be modified by the, by the city decision-making body upon finding that more or less site distance is required.
Since he crossed off the type 1 procedure, he's saying city council, commission. Planning commission.
Yeah. And that was in the model code where they think that it's okay to have another authority decide what a good vision clearance is.
Yeah, so typically when somebody comes to the commission for a relaxation of standards and vision clearance, then they're seeking a variance. And that's a type 3 procedure.
Yeah. I think it at least should be a type 3 procedure, but which would be the authority would be the planning commission. But they had a type 1 procedure.
Yeah, which is interesting. I think the folks that drafted the model code didn't view it as a variance. They viewed it as something that didn't require a public hearing.
Right, because it's a technical decision,
Yeah,
and they have technical people on their staff, so
right.
they just assume that the city of Lakeside has a city engineer that's sitting at a desk in City Hall.
It didn't make any sense to me to have
Yeah.
decision-making body and type 1 next to each other, but they did.
I think at minimum, probably the planning commission would have the most knowledge. And so I don't even like the fact that you can modify it, but
Yeah. And we should talk about the distances here under visual clearance for a second. So the
Yeah.
minimum here is 3 feet from the model code, but the minimum from the rest of Lakeside's current land use code is 3.5 feet. So we should probably be consistent with the rest of our code and go with 3.5 feet.
yeah.
And then
I think 8 feet is consistent, right?
actually, we don't have anything like that. So what the model code's saying is this is your visual clearance in terms of altitude.
You can have a trip. you can
And
have a
ours
tree
says
hanging over it.
everything above 3.5 feet, like all the way up to the nearest star.
Well, but why would you, I guess the only thing would be Carl's scenario with the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the only situation where you would have that variance. Because you're not gonna build one big old window. You know,
Right.
unless it's a tree.
Yeah, that's what they're aiming at.
Well, actually, if a tree is in your visual clearance triangle, you're supposed to remove it.
Well, the branches have gotta be 20 feet out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I think the 8 feet is nice because it lets your tree grow out over that.
That's what I meant. That's what I
Triangle,
was-
yeah. Let's leave the 8 feet in,
Okay.
just in case I'd love to see a tree like that. Yeah,
I like the one
that
down
would
in the
work.
Goodish.
Yeah.
That tree's with all its leaves now. Beautiful. It's beautiful in the fall. when it's-
So what did we decide as far as modifying the vision clearance?
3.5 feet.
Oh, no, yeah, the 3.5 to 8 feet, and then the decision-making body is planning commission. And then exceptions and adjustments. I think that should just be planning commission. What do you think, Rob?
I think so too.
Go with that responsibility. Well, good, we got through it. See, that one was an easy one.
Oh, really? Everybody was so quiet back here.
Yeah. And you didn't even say it.
I did,
Yeah, I know you did. You did bring up some knowledge that we didn't have. Yeah, well, good.
So did you have a consensus on who's going to decide on a variation from visual clearance? Did you want that to be the
Planning
commission?
They talked about, not getting it out for the meetings and then they got up and left. That was rude. That was just plain rude. You guys let us know when these are.
So we are now at, since we've done public comments. Oh, any other items on the agenda? We know
Sure.
that the hearing is gone because I checked on the county records. It's now, the property is now owned by the city.
Yeah,
We're talking about the one down on corner of York.
so the continuation hearing that's scheduled for June 1st is not happening. So that application's withdrawn. I haven't gotten written notice from the applicant yet, but expect to receive that the next day or two, which is kind of moot since they don't own the property anymore.
Yeah, I don't think they can bring up, thing if they.
That's
So the
right.
city now owns that corner lot.
Yes. What else did I have? The second meeting of June is on the standing calendar for June 15th. And you have to either decide not to have a second meeting in June, or we have to schedule it for another day because the city council needs chambers that night.
I think we can pass.
Okay,
That's a workshop.
yeah, normally, And then,
So we
So
might
no
never,
meeting,
we won't see you in a long time, right?
not in June,
Not in any of it.
and then,
July.
and then,
July.
what about May 19th? 2 weeks from
Well,
tonight,
that's May 18th is 2 weeks from tonight.
or 18th,
So the
Math is off.
18th is when the budget committee meets
okay?
for this 1 hour.
Uh-huh,
It ain't gonna be an hour.
there's no way.
Yeah, so we should just cancel our meeting.
Okay,
So we're not having one again in this month and then next month I'm off.
Yep.
Is this a vacation?
Yes.
sure feels like it.
So,
Because I gotta have eyes.
so since you were jealous about Randy,
But Randy's not gonna be here either, because we're not.
Well, on June 1st, Randy should be
yeah,
here.
registered. Well, we don't see you, but-
Well, June 30th is my birthday. Let's have a party on June. What does that fall on?
June 30th is a Friday.
And then,
Oh, boy.
last thing I want to tell you is the application period for the TGM grant opened. So I will be busy doing a grant application. So we're applying for somewhere in 6 figures to get them to fund consultants to help us redo our comp plan.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob. Good
So
work on this.
hopefully we'll get that.
Rob wrote the original proposal.
Yeah, we did a pre-application process first, and they said it would be the type of thing they're interested in funding. That doesn't mean we'll get it, but
Yeah,
and they've
Yeah,
got
but-
somebody assigned to us to help us through the application process.
oh, good.
Yeah. So we'll be doing that over the next month or two.
Thank heavens we don't have any hearings coming up.
That's right.
Yeah.
There is no live applications for hearings at all at this point. So,
So, yeah. All right, with that, it's 8, let's just call it 8:15. And I close the planning commission meeting.